If your touchscreen displays a temp sensor error fault, follow these steps. Navigate to Settings, Diagnostics, Temp Sensors. This is the temp sensor view in Diagnostics. This displays the status and temperatures of all configured temperature sensors. If any sensor present reads no sense, NC, or errors, this sensor is in fault. It needs to be inspected and the error resolved. To resolve the temp sensor error, first, confirm the wiring of temp sensors to the control panel, and, if necessary, check temp sensor resistance. Polarity of the sensor does not matter. To confirm the wiring of the temperature sensors, verify that the required temperature sensors from the field wiring diagram are present. The field wiring diagram is on the inside of the control panel door. Cross-reference the temp sensors shown on the diagram with the wired sensors on the main board. Looking at the diagram, we see one room sensor and two temp sensors. If your touchscreen displays a no sense or NC next to a sensor in Diagnostics, check the terminal ports for the sensor to ensure the temp sensor wires are landed. Here, TS1 says no sense, so we need to check terminals TS1A and TS1B. If the wiring for the faulting temp sensor is present and it is still showing not connected or error, check the temperature sensor resistance. Remove the sensor with the fault. Check resistance using a voltmeter. Proper sensor resistance is around 1080 ohms at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. If your sensor reads less than 950 ohms or more than 1200 ohms of resistance while at room temperature, it needs replacing. If the sensor does not read resistance or shows OL, open line, check the wiring to the sensor. Temp sensors come from the factory with an 8-foot pigtail. From there, it is common for the field to have to make a junction to connect to the controller. Ensure all junctions are correct, and, if necessary, check the sensor resistance directly from the sensor. Wires should be 18 gauge, insulated, stranded, or solid copper wire. If the sensor still has OL reading, or resistance less than 950 ohms, or more than 1200 ohms, the sensor will need to be replaced. For replacement sensors, contact Accurex Parts or Accurex Tech Support and be sure to have the wiring diagram code or serial number. If a temp sensor is present and not needed as indicated on the wiring diagram or per site conditions, you can remove this sensor. To remove a temp sensor, first navigate to Factory Settings on the touchscreen. Depending on the type of sensor, navigate to the appropriate setting. For a room sensor removal, select MB Room Sensor and change the setting from yes to no. For hood temperature sensors, select MB Temp Sensor and set the number of desired sensors. Sensors always follow numerically from Temp Sensor 1 on the main board. If there is a room sensor being removed and the temp sensor fault is still present, navigate to Zone Settings and ensure the room temp setting is set to preset in each zone and save it. The temperature fault condition puts the board into temperature interlock mode, putting the fans into automatic operation. To regain control of the fans, either cycle power to the controls or wait for the temperature interlock to expire.